Okay, so like the plan is we're gonna be watching this video by SummoningSalt. It's pretty freaking cool. It's on the world record progression history of Super Mario 16 star. This is the speed run that I do the most frequently. I'm not very good at it. My current record is a 21:54. I'm gonna get a sub 20 in a couple of months, and that shit is gonna take me a little while, but I'm very excited for the grind of it. And I know that a lot of my community does not actually come from a background of speedrunning, because like I'm still really new to this, and I just kind of brought y'all over for the ride. So I want to educate y'all by watching this video, because it's got so much cool stuff in it, and it just dives into the entire history of how things got to where they are in the current world record pace. It's super cool, super worth watching, and this video's production value is some of the best that I've ever seen. So I say we kind of just hop into it. You ready? It should save to the VOD now. There you go. Is audio still good? Hang on already.
Super Mario 64 16 star. It's the most popular category and the most popular speed game of all time. Holding a record in it is one of gaming's toughest accomplishments. Ridiculous glitches and insane movement, both requirements for a world record. Just a lucky few have been able to call themselves a record holder, and with the incredible level of competition, it's hard to hold on to it for long. But let's take a look at those gamers and see how they did it. This is the history of the 16-star world record.
Bro, this song is like one of my favorite things ever. It's so fucking good. I love his editing and all the music that he uses. Fucking amazing.
Super Mario 64 has 120 stars you can collect. There are speedrun categories that involve collecting all of them. However, the developers only required you to collect 70 of them.
Audio got a little high there.
That's how many you needed to make it up the endless staircase and into the final stage. For years, 70 stars was the minimum needed to beat Super Mario 64. But years after the game's release, that number suddenly dropped to 50. Eventually, it was lowered again, this time to 31. And in 2004, the number fell to just 16. Super Mario 64 could now be completed in under half an hour. And in the summer of 2004,
speedrunners are fucking amazing.
The first 16-star speedruns.
I could never figure this shit out for myself. I love the speedrun for this game.
There were a handful of records set over the course of a few months from players.
Like, speedrunning this game is so fucking fun, but I could never figure out the shit that they do. It's so incredible. It's so fucking incredible. I love it so much.
Just like Cyberwrath and Christina Korsak. But the dust settled a bit when a runner named Illudude set a big record. In November 2004, he beat the game with 16 stars in 21 minutes and 56 seconds.
Hey yo, I beat the first world record. That's cool. I didn't realize that. My time's faster than the first world record. That's not that impressive, but that's still kind of cool.
And here's how he did it. The first goal in a 16-star speedrun.
Oh, it's massive static.
Stars,
it's so massive.
The first
biggest speedrunning community in the world.
In the Dark World.
Easy.
He got the first star by going into Bob-omb Battlefield and ground pounding the Chain Chomp's pole 3 times, unlocking the star. One of the fastest ways to move in Super Mario 64 is the long jump, so Illudude chained these together over and over whenever he could. Next, he went into Whomp's Fortress to collect 5 more stars. He got the first 2 by going to the top of the stage, defeating Whomp, and then climbing to the top of the fortress. He then quickly got the star on the ledge by side flipping to it, then opened the cannon, used it to blast away the wall, and shot himself into the star to collect it. A slow process that ate up around half a minute. Finally, he got picked up by the owl to fall into the cage and collect another star. That put his total at 6 stars. The remaining 2 came from sliding down Peach's slide to collect both stars, despite a bit of slow movement along the way. Illudude was then able to enter Bowser in the Dark World, where he used long jumps to move through the stage. It took 2 throws to hit Bowser with a bomb, but eventually he got the job done. Now that he could go into the basement, Illudude's next goal was to collect 7 more stars to allow Mips the rabbit to appear. The first 2 stars came from shifting Sandland, where he got one from quickly jumping at the top of the pyramid, and the other from slowly waiting on top of a pillar for a bird to arrive. The next 2 came from Lethal Lava Land, where Illudude boiled the big bully and collected 8 red coins. His movement wasn't ideal in any of these sections, as his only real strategy for moving fast was to long jump whenever he could. Finally, the last 3 stars came from collecting the Toad Star, then heading into Hazy Maze Cave, getting the Emergency Exit Star, and the Watch for Rolling Rocks Star. Now, Illudude had 15 stars, which spawned Mips the Rabbit. Normally, you can just grab him for a star, but Illudude was going to use him for a trick discovered by Dom Dunk a few months prior. This was the key to beating the game with 16 stars. The first step is getting Mips through this door. By putting him down right in front of it, then going through the door, you can quickly jump back and stand inside the door. From there, you can pick up Mips, turn around, and place him on the other side. Then you want to take Mips to this door.
It's so crazy looking at the original methods. Because like
placing him in front of it, you can jump between.
A lot of these are so different from what I do.
Through it, skipping the 30-star requirement. The Mips clips could be difficult to perform, but if done properly, they would save many minutes off a Super Mario 64 speedrun. After this, Illudude went into Dire Docks, collected the submarine star to unlock Bowser in the Fire Sea, and went through it as fast as he could. Once again, it took him 2 throws to defeat Bowser, but he now had the second key. It was time to head upstairs, where he was about to perform probably the most iconic trick in Super Mario 64 speedrunning.
Who can say the name, chat? Who knows the name of this trick? It's a pop quiz, everybody! Ayo! Bing, ding, 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 ding! Who can say the name of this iconic Super Mario 64 speedrunning trick? Not me! Come on, one of you fuckers has to know this. One of you. I say this all the time. It's a name of one of my splits. One of you has to fucking know the name. And if you don't, I'm gonna throw hands. I'm a fucking throw hands, dude. Childhood me couldn't figure out how to complete one land, and people figure out these glitches. Dude, it's insane. Like childhood, first of all, kids fucking suck at video games. I do not understand how people be cranking 90s in Fortnite and like kicking ass in that game. It does not make any fucking sense to me. Children, props to you for understanding that game. I don't get it. I'm gonna keep doing my LBL, or sorry, my LBLJs, my BLJs, because that's the name of this speedrun trick.
The backwards long jump.
How did none of you fuckers know this? I'm so disappointed. I'm so sad. Welcome back, Cozy Burrito. But I'm so disappointed. How did you not know? This shit's iconic. Oh yeah, BLT or whatever. Uh-huh.
This trick was popularized in a November 2000 edition of Nintendo Power magazine, but it's quite likely Nintendo knew about it as early as 1997. Since that year, they released
people didn't know BLJ's backwards long jump
in Japan that made the trick impossible. When you do a long jump but hold the stick backwards, the game gives Mario a slight boost of speed. It normally snaps back to normal quickly after, but if
It's
you land
literally the
fast
most
enough,
iconic
like on
speedrunning trick.
stairs, it's preserved so you can do another backwards long jump. By jumping
I know!
over,
That's what I'm saying,
it's
Cozy.
possible to catch Mario in a loop where his speed continuously builds up. He can keep going faster and faster. If your speed builds fast enough, it's possible to be on one side of wall on one frame and the other side on the next. And that means if you mash correctly, you can backwards long jump and fly through doors.
It's so cool, dude. That is like legend. It is literally the most iconic thing in speedrunning.
50-star door and the endless staircase,
Easily.
bypassing the requirements for 50 and 70 stars respectively.
Like, this shit, it wasn't even much of, like, he said it in the video, but this trick was featured in Nintendo Power. Like, it was known about by, like, official journalist people, and it was shown in a magazine. So, like, it wasn't even iconic just as a speedrunning thing, it was iconic as a video game thing.
Then, it was a matter of making it through Bowser in the sky and hitting Bowser with 3 bombs.
All the purple people in chat tonight.
It took
True.
him 6 throws, but it was enough to finish with a time of 21:56. World record by a significant margin. This run was pretty good for 2004, given how new the MIPS clips and BLJs were. However, as noted before, the movement left much to be desired, and some tricks took several tries. And about 6 months later, a player named Kirby Carter would lower it by about a minute. He definitely did clean up the movement a bit, but was still mostly using long jumps. He didn't miss as many throws on Bowser, and was able to get the BLJs extremely quickly. However, the biggest revolution introduced in this run was the new, more reliable version of the MIPS clips.
And what we use is variations
For the
of
first
both
one,
of those
by
now.
dropping MIPS on the seam between the door and the wall, Mario gets pushed forward and becomes stuck inside the door. The rest of the trick can be completed as before. For the second clip, it's the same process as the first clip, but instead of getting stuck
That's the one
in
I
door,
use bit for bit.
Mario gets pushed through all the way to the other side. These clips were both faster and more consistent than before, becoming the clear methods to use. So, going into mid-2005, Kirby Carter's 2046 was on top. A solid record, with video proof that, from 2005, wasn't always a given.
Dude, literally, all this is making me want to do is just play the game. I really want to play the game right now. No, we're keep watching.
The record timeline was pretty straightforward at this point, and had followed a pattern seen by most early speedruns from the mid-2000s. Early runs recorded on VHS with primitive strategies, followed by improvements in big chunks over the following years. However, after this point, the 16-star history takes a bit of a turn. For the next several years, there would be 2 major caveats in the timeline.
I'm not talking about
First,
Wizard 101.
Cheated or faked runs would be illegitimately on top of the leaderboard for more than 80% of the next decade. For most games, cheated runs do occasionally happen, but rarely does it affect the record timeline as substantially as it did for 16-star. So, the fastest
crazy.
runs from legitimate players will be included in this video instead. And second, although most runs had video proof when performed, records before 2013 have very little video surviving today, and some of the surviving stuff is very low quality. Many runs were live streamed at the time, but the videos weren't saved. There were also many emulator records at this time, but since they reduce lag and aren't kept on the same leaderboard as console runs, they won't be included in this video. It's a bit tricky to analyze runs from this period, but we'll work with what we can. After Kirby Carter's 2046, a player named
12 FPS is generous for that frame rate. That frame rate was like maybe 2 frames per second.
Le Coureur 103 would rapidly lower the record down to 1908 over the course of 2005. He posted his times on the Speed Demos Archive forum, but videos for these runs seem to have never made it online. So, despite lowering the record by 1.5 minutes, there's not much to analyze. Then, by 2009, the record scene moved to Japan. Through August 2009, 4 players set a record: Sho, Shigeru, Cass, and Taka. Most of these runs don't have surviving video, and the ones that do were live streamed with 2000.
Okay, it's like 3 frames per second.
So instead, we'll skip to December 2009, when we finally get a run with a clean video feed from Taka. Remember, Kirby Carter had gotten a 20-minute run in 2005, and there were allegedly 19-minute runs later that year. What did Taka get in 2009? How about a run clocking in at 17 minutes, 18 seconds? To put it bluntly, this record was on another level.
Legitimately, the fact that he knocked 2 whole minutes off of a world record time and posted that shit, that's fucking insane. That does not happen very often.
The amount of tricks,
and when it
the
does,
level of optimization, everything
it's
about
mostly
Taka's
just
run
because
was
like
miles ahead of runs from years
the
prior.
speedrun
Truth
has
be
a new
told,
big
there had
glitch.
been
This
many
didn't.
new
He just literally
strategies
improved
slowly
everything
implemented
about the
in runs
previous
over
one.
the years. But they all came together in Taka's record. And they started literally right when the game begins. Normally, once you reach the middle of the bridge, Lakitu stops you for a cutscene. By jumping on the very edge of the bridge railing, Taka was able to skip the trigger for the cutscene and save about 7 seconds. Once he went inside, however, the run really started to take off. This was thanks in part to a handful of major new tricks. Kirby Carter's run from 2005.
I tried to do that trick too, but I'm not good at it.
But Taka had some tricks up his sleeve that changed everything. Trick number 1. In Bob-omb Battlefield, Taka performed the bomb clip. By activating the bomb and getting pushed by it toward the gate, you can precisely jump before it explodes, getting pushed through the gate to collect the star. This saves close to 10 seconds over the standard method. Taka then went to Womp's Fortress and performed trick number 2, a legendary one known as Cannonless. The normal process for getting the Blast Away the Wall star is slow, and involves opening the cannon, jumping in it, shooting at the wall, and landing to collect the star. However, this can all be skipped by performing Cannonless, where you just run at the wall in the perfect spot and collect the star without blasting away the wall. It saves around 20 seconds over using the cannon, which is huge, but the issue is the precision involved. You need to hit the exact right spot in the wall for this to work, so that Mario grabs the ledge the star is on top of, and his hitbox moves up to intersect with the star. Even taking time to set up the trick didn't help very much. The most skilled players struggled to hit the trick more than about 20% of the time. 16-star runs were transformed with Cannonless. You had a couple shots to get it, but if you failed, you'd have to reset. So now, most runs wouldn't make it past the 2.5 minute mark. Thankfully, Taka hit Cannonless first try, just so he could go and perform trick number 3 immediately after. By triple jumping and wall kicking off the cage perfectly, you could fall in it without having to use the owl. It only saved around 6 seconds, but Owlless became a staple of 16-star runs as well.
Owlless
Another
is so
big
cool.
upgrade for Taka was his movement. Older runs had just used long jumps, but Taka carefully selected his moves to optimize the speed of each section. Diving was used all over for short speed boosts,
he's
while
probably been
long
grinding
jumps
these
still had
runs
their
way
place
before
for
those,
longer straight sections.
and then he just popped the fuck
This
off.
upgraded movement could particularly be seen
This
in
shit's
Bowser
insane.
in the Dark World, where Taka varied his movement all over to collect 8 red coins for an additional star. The back half was clean too. Fast MIPS clips and BLJs helped save some additional time. However, the run definitely wasn't without its faults. He had some slip-ups, like here in Lethal Lava Land, and he missed a throw on Bowser at the very end. But thanks to the upgrades in movement, strategies, and overall execution, Taka's run was more than 3 minutes faster than the early records. Super Mario 64 speedruns were about to enter a new era. Gone were the days of infrequent records with suboptimal strategies. Over the next year and a half, the record would be broken nearly a dozen times. Most of the videos for these records didn't survive, but the few we do have show gameplay far ahead of its time. The two dominant record holders for this era were Taka and Shigeru. They took turns lowering the record into the low 17s, before Shigeru broke the sub-17 barrier with a 1654. But when Taka took the record back with a 1652, he had a trick up his sleeve. LBLJ.
Dude, watching this video
LBLJ stands for Lobby Backwards
just
Long
validates my opinion. I can get a
its origins
17-minute
can be
run. I
traced
can
to
totally
an
do it.
October 2006 video where Mr. Robert Z jumped up from below and grabbed an exposed ledge. He theorized that you could then possibly do a backwards long jump. And it turns out he was right. A tool-assisted runner named Mijitsu showed it off in a TAS a month later, and it was eventually adopted by runners. By backwards long jumping into the basement ceiling.
Also, I want to clarify, because again, not many of you know speedruns. A TAS is a tool-assisted speedrun, basically meaning that you use a tool that allows you to precisely record your inputs and go frame by frame, and like reset save state over and over so you actually get the correct input. So then you can optimally do these things, even though a human wouldn't be able to, because you could technically do frame perfect inputs on every single frame. So like 30 inputs in a second, like all of which are frame perfect. It's impossible to do on a human level, but it's possible in this. So like that's why they use it, is to show off that kind of tech.
Which extends upwards. You can land and repeatedly jump to build speed. You then land in a black area outside the front door with a lot of speed still built up. Then, you rotate the camera precisely to steer Mario's speed toward the 8-star door. If done properly, Mario will shoot through it and land next to the entrance for Bowser in the Dark World. This ultimately saves time because many of the 8 stars needed to open the door are slow, like ground-pounding Womp 3 times. By ignoring the 8-star requirement, players could now just get the key right away, collect 3 fast stars in Womp's Fortress, and head straight to the basement. It saved half a minute overall. Armed with LBLJ, Shigeru would continue to grind 16-star in 2010 and 2011. He would pull away from Taka, lowering the record deeper into the 16s, while optimizing his movement and tricks along the way. It was starting to feel inevitable that somebody would break the 16-minute barrier.
Breaking a minute barrier like that as a world record run has to feel so fucking good. I do a variation of that.
But as it turns out, the first person to get a sub 16 wouldn't be Shigeru. It wouldn't be Taka either. In fact, it wasn't anyone who had set a 16-star record before. In August 2011, someone else broke through with a 1554. And his name was Matt Turk.
Okay.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that joke's not gonna hit with a lot of people who are watching this. SummoningSalt has a bunch of videos that mention that guy because he's a speedrunning legend. He hasn't played Mario 64, at least not gotten a world record in it. It's just a joke.
It was Akira. Akira's run was a culmination of strategies that had been slowly developed over the years. It started with LBLJ. He got it very cleanly, quickly rotating the camera to drop Mario in Bowser in the Dark World. After collecting 8 red coins in the key, he got Cannonless first try, Owlless, and the side flip star. making all three of these stars seem effortless. In Lethal Lava Land, he boiled the big bully, got a couple stars in the volcano, got the log rolling star via a precise triple jump wall kick, and got 8 red coins. These 5 stars were all relatively quick, the longest one taking only about 20 seconds. He then went into Shifting Sandland, got the star in the top of the pyramid, then bounced off a sniffet to get the bird star early. In Hazy Maze Cave, he triple jumped to get into the dinosaur room quickly, then grabbed the emergency exit and Rolling Rock stars. The MIPS clips were about perfect, and in Dire Dire Docks, Akira went for the risky front sub to save a couple seconds. He tore through Bowser in the fire
Front
scene,
sub!
barely
I'm gonna land
making
one
the
of those one
fastest
day.
cycle. Both the backwards long jumps were instantaneous, and he nailed every Bowser throw to wrap up a sub 16-minute run. This seemed like it would be the last minute barrier ever broken in 16 star. There simply wasn't enough time to save to take it past 15 minutes. That being said, there was still some room to take it lower into the 15s. About 6 months later, Botodo would grab the record for the first time with a 15:52, losing a bit of time to bad movement early but saving time at the end with a cleaner Bowser in the sky. Not to be outdone, Akira would beat him by a full 8 seconds in April 2013.
Also, welcome in Harpo.
Thanks to a fast LBLJ at the start and tearing through the other BLJs. This 1544 would then stand on top of the leaderboard for the next 2 years. That's an incredibly long time for a category as competitive as 16 star. There were a few reasons this happened, but one really big reason is a trick about 3 minutes into the run. I'm talking, of course, about cannonless. It was a pretty big blow when 2/3 of your runs would die to the same trick right at the start. There wasn't a way around it. You either got cannonless, or you reset. For years, cannonless had been ending record runs before they could really begin. And it helped lead to stretches like this, where no world records were set for many months. If someone could just figure out a way to set it up consistently, to grab the star every time, it would open up so many new doors in 16 star. And in October 2014, that's exactly what Sockfolder did. Sockfolder is a speedrunning legend. He's found revolutionary setups for tricks in Ocarina of Time, Luigi's Mansion, even the original Super Mario Bros. Once he sets his mind to figuring something out, he's usually able to do so. This time, there was a way to solve cannonless. On October 8th, 2014, he came out with this complicated setup. You would grab the ledge, pull yourself up, punch twice.
Oh, Hades? Hades is sick.
Set the camera, walk straight down.
Hell yeah.
Adjust the camera, pull yourself up, backflip, punch, walk straight down again, reset the camera again, then pull yourself up and walk down. If all this was done properly, you would grab the star every single time. The obvious problem with this was how slow it was. Even if done quickly, the setup cost 10 seconds over normal cannonless. That's a significant amount of time in a run like 16 star. But luckily, later the same day, runners Def Tech and Gothic Logic would find an improvement. You didn't actually have to do the first part of the setup. You could skip straight to jumping on the ledge next to the plank, then perform the setup from there.
That's the one that I do.
This meant you'd only lose 6 seconds instead of 10, which was a bit more reasonable, and the whole process still lined you up perfectly to grab the ledge and collect the star. It's no exaggeration to say that cannonless setup was one of the biggest finds in speedrunning history. Those 2/3 of runs that died at cannonless were now gone. It now had a near 100% success rate. This gave the record so much more potential, since without having to reset as much early, players could focus on optimizing the rest of the run. So, throughout 2015, a handful of runners were gunning for the record. And what resulted was a mad dash to push the record down as much as possible.
That's it! Ah, yatta!
That's so fair. Fighting him for the first time fucking sucks, but you will get there. You're a god gamer. Yeah, you literally could have cheated, Static. What are you doing?
By May 2016, Zaya had taken the record all the way to 1524. A run with a really fast LBLJ, nearly every trick hit throughout the stages,
Or it's
and
homie.
fast BLJs.
Anytime.
The only real noticeable slowdowns were a slow start to Pillarless and getting bad boulder luck in Hazy Maze Cave. A very impressive record given how many tricks were now in the run. And incredibly, this record too would stand for nearly 2 years. But
2 years,
eventually,
goddamn.
a couple of new runners began to get really low times. Their personal bests dropped below 16 minutes, eventually into the 1540 range. And it became evident that both of them were going to make a push for the record. This is Aki and Ouija. In November 2017, Aki got on a run that had potential. A great LBLJ, pillarless, cannonless. After getting the second key, he was on pace for a 1525, but could potentially get as low as 1518 if he matched his best last split ever. A record by 6 seconds. It was all going to come down to the BLJs. They were decent, but not good enough for a record. Aki would finish with a 1528, 4 seconds behind Zaya. But a few months later, he'd have another shot at it. 4 seconds ahead of his last run, he once again needed good BLJs.
Near perfect. Oh no, no.
This time, it was good enough. A 1522, beating Zaya by 2 seconds and making Aki the new record holder.
Their
But a
pop-ups.
few days later,
Their pop-ups are the most genuine shit ever, and I fucking love it. Ouija's a god. I'd say pets, but I have S. That was funny.
I did it! I did it!
Yo,
It's over! I did it, man. I did it.
that adrenaline.
I did it.
this was the first ever sub 1520 in 16-star history. One new trick he and Aki were using was in Womp's Fortress, where he used a new setup for cannonless called Texture Setup that had been theorized years prior by Snowman. Instead of using Sockfolder's long setup, Ouija just lined up Mario's feet with a texture in the side of the plank.
Bro, when you
and
that
went for
cracked
it.
on adrenaline,
It wasn't
you
as
can't control
consistent
the
as
voice
normal
cracks.
setup, but it was
That shit goes
faster
insane.
and still more consistent than no setup at all. Compromises like this had to be made now that the remaining time saves were disappearing. He gained some time over Aki with a
I don't know why, but the idea of adrenaline voice cracks me up when you take into account warriors in battle probably have a lot of adrenaline, so if they were screaming they'd be like, ah. Anyways,
cleaner lethal lava land, but lost some in Bowser in the Fire Sea. His BLJs were excellent, but he had a slight mistake at the end of Bowser in the Sky. Although the run had some downfalls, it was still a record by 5 seconds. Not to be outdone, Aki would fire back 6 months later with a 15-16. He messed up the triple jump in Hazy Maze Cave, and his Fire Sea had a slow ending. He made up the time over Ouija, however, with a faster Mips grab while standing, and cleaning up his mistake in Bowser in the Sky. He also threw Bowser a bit faster each time, saving a fraction of a second per throw. At this point, when the record was lowered, it was typically only by a second or maybe a few seconds at most. When records get as precise as 16 star, where players have done tens of thousands of runs each, taking time off in big chunks was pretty much out of the question. But incredibly, just 3 weeks after his 15-16, Aki was in position to do just that.
that's gotta be an amazing feeling. Being that
As
green
always,
on a run this precise.
It came down to the BLJs.
Holy shit.
No pressure. This was it. An unbelievable chance to make history. He just had to make it through Bowser in the Sky, hit all 3 of the throws, and he'd be golden.
Does he hit the third one? He does. Cracked
マジかよ
run.
これマジで俺やったぞやったーこれやべえおいみんなこれやべえぞ
A 1508 was the largest cut off the record in more than 3.5 years. A near perfect run from start to finish. The mistakes in Hazy Maze Cave and Fire Sea were cleaned up, and his movement overall was optimized for time saves too. As you'd expect, this run stayed at the top of the leaderboard for a long time. 6 months later, it was still in first. Second place was 8 seconds behind. Nobody was getting close to it. To have a realistic chance at beating this, you'd need new strats. The old ones had just about completely been optimized. As good as Aki was, it would help to change his approach if he wanted to take the record under 1508. So, as 2019 came around, he looked into what else he could do to save time. First, there was Cannonless. Texture setup was great, but it lost a few seconds over just running at the wall and praying. So, Aki decided that he needed to give up the consistency of the setup and go back to normal Cannonless. The same awful
Dude, that's dedication.
trick that killed 2/3 of all runs years prior. This was obviously a really tough move, but the run was getting so optimized that it was worth it. Second, Aki went for a faster setup for Pillarless. Developed by Tama, you would do the jump dive on the hill instead of going over the top. This enabled you to get hands-free quicker, and allow the trick to begin sooner than before. With these setups in mind, Aki kept doing attempts. On May 10th, The new time saves helped him be 6 seconds ahead of the record early. He would bleed some of this time in Fire Sea, but good BLJs kept him well ahead. 3 Bowser throws later, Aki had done it again.
5秒切ったぞ世界よっしゃ次14いくぞよっしゃ次14いってやるからな
Incredibly, this record put Aki 12 seconds ahead of anyone else on the leaderboard. And he didn't stop there.
Dominant.
He kept doing attempts for a lower record. He even had paces multiple seconds ahead of the 1504. But every time, something would kill it. But in late 2019, Aki would finally get some competition at the top of the leaderboard. And this particular runner certainly had credentials. He was both the 0-star and 1-star record holder. He was one of the best in the world at optimizing fast movement. And his name was Dowski. Dowski had previously held the 16-star record before, getting a 15:16 the day before Aki got his incredible 15:08. However, this time he wanted something more, a record that would last for a while. Even though his personal best was a few seconds behind Aki, he knew he had the skill to keep up with him. So, Dowski's record attempts began, and on November 17th, he got on a run that fell behind early thanks to missing Canonless on the first try. However, he more than made up that time with a faster Fire Sea, including a different strategy at the end where he avoided jumping on the edge of the stage. He had a 4-second lead over the record. This actually had sub-15 potential. But as always, the BLJs stood in the way.
First one was pretty damn good. Oof.
They weren't great, but his best possible time was still 1 second ahead of the record. If he could tear through the stage, he'd have a chance.
What do you guys think? Did he tear through the stage? Do you think he beats it? Well, that's close.
As it turns out, it would be record by just over 1/10 of a second. For the first time in a year, Aki was no longer the record holder. With so many times being set in short succession, 16-star as a category was flourishing. There was really only one problem. At this point, it had been almost 2 years since someone with a funny username had set a record. In recent months there had been Aki and Dowski, but to get a good one, you have to go back to Ouija and his 1517. And even that one's not amazing compared to the likes of 420 Blaze It and Shivering Erotic King Banana. Well, in early 2020, someone wanted to rectify that. He started moving up on the leaderboards, going from 5th to 3rd place right behind the two 1504s. And shortly thereafter, he would end up taking the top spot. And the runner's name certainly didn't disappoint. On February 27th, a 15:03 was achieved by Slippery Nip. He
Slippery
gained
Nip's
time
too fucking
early
good,
thanks
dude.
to a faster LBLJ, and managed to match Dowski's speed in making the Tsukishima cycle on the platforms. In Womp's Fortress, he gained time by hitting Canonless first try, partially thanks to his setup by Salt and Ginger to adjust the camera and clip in the wall more consistently. He maintained this 4-second lead until the second MIPS clip, which took him 2 tries, but gained about a second back on the BLJs. That worked out to a 15:03, just ahead of Dowski and enough to make Slippery Nip the new record holder. The community was beginning to approach a barrier. They were now just 4 seconds away from a sub-15-minute run. The last time a minute barrier had been broken was almost 9 years prior, with Akira's 1554. Now, a run in the 14s was seeming inevitable. But what time saves were left? Well, looking at the 1503 record, the big potential time saves were the 4 seconds lost due to the MIPS clip, and a few seconds that could be saved on the BLJs. But beyond that, there were still fractions of a second to squeeze out all over. On LBLJ, Lethal Lava Land, Bowser in the Sky, all from subtle, faster strategies or improving movement. Those time saves all added up to a run well under 15 minutes. But someone still had to take it there. And one player who would make a big push was Aki. After getting a 1503 of his own, Aki would get a very promising run going on May 1st, 2020. It was about even going into the MIPS clips, where he messed up the first one instead of the second one. Still, a strong Fire C and BLJs kept him just ahead going into Bowser in the Sky. And there, he was able to make a faster elevator cycle called Monamo cycle by making his movement as tight as possible, including an incredible triple jump dive onto the platform. 3 throws later, Aki was so close to a sub 15.
Oh my gosh.
マジで
1 more second to go. Aki pushed onward over the coming days and
0.43,
weeks,
dude.
getting great runs on pace that eventually died to something. The biggest culprit, of course,
Insane.
were the BLJs. Getting Mario to catch on the stairs seemed almost random at times. If you didn't get him to catch within a few jumps, it was run over, and even making it through would usually result in losing time. But Aki knew sub 15 was within reach. He just needed one good run past the BLJs. And on May 10th, 2020, Aki had this run. It was about as close to a perfect run as you could get. Chances like this don't come along very often. Now, more than ever, the BLJs needed to happen. They didn't need to be very good, he just needed something decent.
It's so fucking crazy, dude. I don't know how. You just got like the fucking perfect timing both times.
Or he could get near perfect BLJs. This was his chance for the run of a lifetime. By the skin of his teeth, Aki had pulled out a 1459, the world's first sub 15. Obviously, as good as it was, this run still had some room for improvement. He lost 6 seconds on the last split for mistakes in Bowser in the Sky. But still, that was it for big time losses. It was an incredible run up until then, and it was daunting to try and beat. For the next several months, there was little action at the top of the leaderboard. The top 3 stayed in the same spots, and 2021 came around with just Aki in the elusive sub 15 club. See this guy down here? This is Kano, and he was 6th place in the world with a 1517. He was considered an elite runner of the game, but generally not considered a world record contender. 18 seconds was a lot of difference for a short category like 16 star, and there were several people between him and the top spot. Well, in February 2021, Kano started up a stream on Twitch, and he decided that he wasn't going to end this stream until he set a 16-star world record. He wasn't going to be playing all the time, he'd still live his life and sleep on a normal schedule, but his stream would stay live the entire time. He knew he'd have to do some work given how far he was from the record, but Kano didn't care. He wanted to be the record holder. So, he got to work. Life went on, and Kano kept streaming 16-star. By March, his time was down to 1513.
He literally did, like, I think he streamed for like a ridiculous amount of days, like an insane amount, just trying to do this. Like, not just, he obviously still lived his life, but like he was dedicated. That's fucking amazing.
By April, it was 1507. His stream kept going. He was improving his skills and getting close to a record level. By May, he was starting to get really close, entering the top 3 with a 1503. All the while, the length of the stream climbed higher and higher, going past 1,000 and then past 2,000 hours. Until finally, on June 12th, 2021, Kano had this run.
He started in February, by the way. Just wanted to bring that up.
He actually gained some time early thanks to a new strategy in shifting Sandland by Circle Mark 994, but lost a bit on MIPS from slower setups for the clips. He bled a bit more in Fire Sea from an accidental ground pound, and his BLJs weren't as clean as Aki's, but he knew the time he could save in Bowser in the Sky. After a clean stage, 3 throws separated him from a record.
Yeah. No man's literally spent that long on this game, and I fucking respect it. This shit's so fucking cool to have that much dedication and love for a game.
What? Yes!
You fucking did it, dude! After 3,066 hours!
Oh my god!
More than 3,000 hours of streaming finally put behind him. Kano went from 6th to 1st, a 1517 to a 1458. An unbelievable push that paid off in the end.
So, Foral, I'm very bad at throws. These guys practice this shit all the time, and they don't fucking miss. They don't miss that first throw. If they get that far, they don't miss. Like, it's fucking insane how good these guys are. Yeah, no, his Wi-Fi was fucking cracked.
And Kano could finally hit the end stream button. As the summer of 2021 went on, a few people were going for a sub 1458. One of the most notable players was Ouija. He had set a record 3 years prior with a 1517, but hadn't been able to replicate it. Still, he was considered a top runner. For years, he would continue lowering his personal best, staying within seconds of the record at all times.
Believe me, Foral, I'm
However,
trying.
He never was able to take that top spot again, despite coming close on several occasions. At least until July 4th, 2021. After 39 months, thousands of attempts, and numerous personal bests in the top 5, Ouija had finally done it again. He had beaten all the rest, and had taken back the world record.
I didn't get it.
Dude, just retime.
No, I didn't get it.
No, oh my god! Ouija, you fool!
When Ouija stopped to scroll through the text boxes, Mario was facing away from the star. All he had to do was turn around and jump into the star, but he accidentally jumped forward and lost about a second. It cost him the record. To this day, he's still trying to get it back. But that's not the last run to talk about, because in August 2021, a runner would come back to snag one final record.
Isn't that shit insane? It's so sad. It's so freaking sad. He was right there and he just messed up at the last second. That's how crazy the pressure is in that situation. Like, he plays this game all the time. He knows that he should have turned around and he meant to, but he just fucked up. It sucks. Oh, it broke his heart. It absolutely broke his heart. That BLJ was so fucking clean, dude. The turnaround and everything. It's so good. Got the cycle.
So, who was the runner? Well, it wasn't Ouija, it wasn't Aki, Dowski, or Kano. There's only one username it could have been.
Slippery nip, baby!
Wow. Alright, cool.
Alright, cool. Sweet.
If you enjoyed the
Please go subscribe to SummoningSalt, by the way. Absolutely fucking god tier content creator. Mins is doing the work for the entire speedrun community and more. Just the fucking best videos ever. If you do not watch his content, you're missing out. Like, big time. Makes some of the best shit out there. But I really enjoyed watching that with you guys. I hope that you learned a couple of things and you learned how fucking bad I am at the game. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And that's it.